This is Michael Spedden, and welcome to Fowl Players Radio, your one-stop shop for all of your pop culture needs. We feature interviews from musicians, actors, comics, dancers, authors, and much, much more, up-and-coming artists and beloved favorites. We've got it all, people on stage, backstage, out front, and behind the scenes. Sit back and relax. Let's have some fun.
Hi, I'm Emmy Jo.
And I'm Doug, and we're from the New Zoo Review, and you're watching Fowl Players Radio.
Hi, this is Kathy Ladman, and you're listening to Fowl Players Radio, the place where you get all of your good news information. Not really, but it's just a great show.
And here we are, folks. We are in season 12 of Fowl Players Radio. We're kicking off this season. I met David Finkle. David Finkle is the author of The Great Gatsby Murders. This is a great book. I really enjoyed reading this, and I had a great conversation with David. He's into all kinds of different things. He's a theater critic. He's written a number of books. He's written a lot of short stories. He's also a podcaster. He has a podcast with a group of friends called The Hour of Lateral Thinking. He's also written a series of short stories called Great Dates with Some Late Greats, where people from history come into people's lives and help them. It's really some really great stories here, and I really think you'll enjoy it. His website, where you can get this book, The Great Gatsby Murder Case, he has two websites, two links, davidfinklewrites.com and davidfinkle.com. And I think you'll really enjoy the things that you see on there. There's lots of rabbit holes, lots of very interesting and clever things to read, and I think you'll enjoy it. So, folks, stick around. We'll be back with David Finkle right after these words.
Hello, this is John Piet.
Kevin Schmidt.
And Jerry Bozick.
And we're August, a little band from Virginia. You can hear our story, other stories from the legendary Baltimore, D.C. music scene, and much, much more with Michael Spedden on Fowl Players Radio. You can find it at www.fowlplayersradio.com, on YouTube, and wherever you find podcasts online. Keep rocking.
Hello, my name is Gunhild Carling, and you are listening to Fowl Players Radio, and I am interviewed here, so tune in.
And welcome back to Fowl Players Radio. We are here to kick off season 12, and today we have author David Finkle. David Finkle just wrote this brand new book, and I read it. It's a great book. It's called The Great Gatsby Murder Case. And it's a murder mystery, and you wonder why I would like something like that, huh? Go figure. It's a really enjoyable book. I enjoyed reading it, and David is here to tell us all about it. So welcome, David. Welcome to Fowl Players Radio.
Well, thanks. I feel very welcome, Michael. You're a welcoming guy, so I'm glad to be here.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. So I was looking at your website, and we'll talk about your book here first. I mean, because I was really looking through, and you're into a lot of different things. You've done, you have a lot of different writing projects and a lot of things that you're into here. But well, the main thing is The Great Gatsby Murder Case. It was a great story. I really enjoyed reading it. So tell us about this. How you came up with the idea, and take it from there.
I was walking down my street in Manhattan, New York City, and suddenly it popped into my head, why not write a mystery that takes place on this street? Why I had that thought, I couldn't explain. I just have no idea. But there it was. And I thought, okay, I think I'll do that. And so I imagined in New York City and in Manhattan, people tend to, which is a great amenity, people trying to get rid of books will put their books out on their stoops or by their front door or on top of their trash cans, and you can go through them. And I imagine that there was a stack of books that I went through, and the first couple weren't so interesting to me, but the third one was an edition of The Great Gatsby,
Hmm.
which I then thought of a narrator very much like myself who loved The Great Gatsby, but I attributed to this guy, Daniel Freund, that he was a collector of Great Gatsby editions, and that this was one he didn't have, and he was thrilled to have. So he picks it up, and he comes back to his house, and he doesn't immediately put it on the two shelves where his big Gatsby collection is. He sits down to reread it, and as he starts to read it, on the very first page, certain words begin to change. The first one is the word victim, and in the very next sentence is the word detect, which was really serendipitous for me because I didn't expect that to happen so quickly. And those words start shifting and going into capital letters and italics, and then sending off sparks. And then he starts paging through the entire novel, and all these words jump out, and he realizes that he's being told that whoever owned the edition of this Great Gatsby had either been murdered or was a murderer. And then he realizes, because a phantom hand starts pumping on his back, he realizes he's meant to solve this mystery. And he does. He goes about doing it with the help of a woman who lives a couple doors down, who lives is a busybody who stands on the stoop of the building where he found the book, and then he gets affiliated with a former police detective who is very, very, very sure of himself, and he solved the first. He claimed to solve the first one because it was considered a suicide. It happened in a locked room.
Hmm.
And Daniel Freud thinks, I've never read fiction, mystery fiction, where a locked room suicide wasn't a murder. So that convinces him he's on the right path. And Izzy Abramovich and Abramovich resisting the fact that he'd already solved it, he thinks, believing it was a suicide, but he's talked into investigating it as a murder, and in 5 6 days, the book takes place. There are 7 chapters, Monday through Sunday, and by Sunday they catch the murderer, and it was I just had fun writing it, and I have to say, no, I don't have to say it, but I'm going to say it. I read parts of it every once in a while, uh, and and um, and I it makes me laugh. So I have to. The truth of it is, at least I like this book, and I hope others will too. But but the books for me are their own reward. If you finish a book and you feel you've done, if I feel if I finish a book and I've done my best, then that's the best reward. That's already a reward. Of course, I want readers, and I know apparently you've read the book, Michael. So
I did. I did. I enjoyed it. You had some really great characters in the book, and I love the detective, Izzy Abramowitz. I really liked him. And I really liked the the lady. God, how am I drawing a blank right now?
well, that's because that's what happens when you hoping you don't. Miss Belfer is her name.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was really, I thought it was really interesting how just had him following leads and doing research and coming to the end of the line. And I'm not going to give away too much of the story here, but I think it was well written and very logical, very believable, and but it wasn't easy to figure out as you're reading along, which I think makes for a good mystery.
Well, you would know because apparently you write mysteries yourself.
I do. I do. I would not say that I'm anywhere near in the class of writer that you are,
Oh,
but
please, Michael, please. I'll bet you are.
well,
You're going to see. You'll send me one of your scripts, and I'll read them, and I'll decide
okay,
for myself.
okay, okay.
And also, I don't know what class of writer I am after all. I just I write them, I send them out into the world, and then they have their own lives.
Mhm. I guess it's just like any other art form, really. And it's not easy. It's definitely not an easy thing to do. As I've found over the years, being a musician, being an actor,
Musician, what do you play?
bass player.
Oh,
I,
good for you.
I play bass, guitar, and harmonica, but my main instrument is bass. Yeah.
A jazz bass,
Uh, actually, heavy metal.
heavy metal. Oh,
Yep.
terrific. Have you recorded?
I did a long time ago. I did some recordings a long time ago in a band that wasn't really a metal band, but we were kind of hard edged. And
What did you
then
call yourself?
we were called Orange Seed Parade, and we used to play it. We played at CBGB's in New York a number of times.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
That,
yeah, that
that's
was
that's
legendary.
top of the line.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it really was. We were fortunate to be able to do that.
How many of you were there?
Four.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, yeah, four-piece band, and it
I
was
want I want to hear it.
okay. I'll send you a copy. I'll make sure I get you a copy. I was
Please.
going to send you my book to have it signed, and I'll send you a copy of the CD with it.
Oh, okay.
That way, if you don't like it, you can play frisbee with your dog or use it as an ashtray or something. So, but this is a wonderful, again, a really well done mystery. Very clever. Um, and with the, the author, it kind of reminded me a little bit of a Twilight Zone episode almost too. The role that the letters and everything kind of played with.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I like
Yeah,
the sound of that
yeah.
because I was a huge Twilight Zone fan, and
Hmm.
I love those plots. Were really remarkably good.
They really were, and that show is it's timeless. It really is.
Oh, sure.
There was not only was it really the stories were really well put together. There were such strong morals to the story in all of those. Such lessons to be learned. And a lot of times people would see themselves in those stories too.
And it was very subtle. Uh,
Yes, yes,
Rod Serling, that is, it was Rod Serling, wasn't it?
yes, sir.
He was really clever, and he always there was always something going on underneath it, and they were wonderful. Um,
They really were.
it's nice to be compared to those. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I would say it did remind me a lot of that. Again, with the I'm trying to think off the top of my head of a couple of episodes that kind of where something in inanimate object steered somebody into doing something. Um, I'm sure there were, but I'm just not. I'm just drawing again. I'm drawing a blank. Here I am recording an episode. I'm drawing blanks on you here, but but it seems like you've done you had this here where this book enters this person's life and helps him solve a mystery, a murder mystery. And looking at some of your other work, I was looking at your website, and this is just a chock full of great stuff here. I'm going to have to spend some more time here. You have a whole series of other stories that you've written, a collection of short stories under the title Great Dates with Some Late Greats. And you've got it looks like a whole bunch of stories about historical people coming into somebody's life who needs help. You want to tell us about those a bit too?
Sure. Um, for some reason, as with the Great Gatsby murder case, I'm drawn to surreal things that are slightly transcend reality. And in this, uh, some dead person from the past, from the and in some ways very distant past, like Niccolo Machiavelli, show up in the life of someone today who's having a problem and needs help. And so Toulouse-Lautrec shows up in somebody's life, and Niccolo Machiavelli shows up, and other people, just Marilyn Monroe. The first story is about Marilyn Monroe, and shows up, and she's actually shows up in the life of someone who needs to be sort of taken out of himself, and so it she's actually appearing on Broadway as Hamlet,
Mhm.
and she takes him to the performance of her as Hamlet, in which
Mhm.
she's very good, and she's just doing it that day.
Mhm.
So of course this is really my imagination running wild, but it turns out that when I first lived in New York, I lived way east on East 57th Street, and Marilyn Monroe had lived in the next block farther east, and she was known to hang out at a delicatessen at the corner.
Mhm.
And so they meet in the delicatessen, and that's when she says, "Oh, I'm eating now, but I'm going to the play. You must come with me."
Mhm.
And the stories are all like that.
Sure, sure.
And just if it strikes me, probably there's only one serious one, and it involves Adolf Hitler, who
Right.
is actually stalking uh, Daniel Freud. I use the Daniel Freud a lot, as I think I've said. Is stalking Daniel Freud, and he's come after him. He's coming after him, and Daniel Freud has to get around it, has to overcome him in some way, which he does. And but he bumps into him on the street on Fifth. I think it's Fifth Avenue. Bumps into him on Fifth Avenue, where he's carrying a couple of canvases, his paintings, because as we know, Adolf Schicklgruber was a painter, and so that also fascinates me that so many famous people. Churchill was a painter, and it just fascinates me that when they either begin or end their careers as painters, because
Yeah.
they've done everything they do. Of course, he ended his career with a pistol, so he couldn't end it with a painting.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that I think there are 14, 12 or 14 stories in that collection, and it was also great fun to. If it isn't fun for me, that it's not worth doing.
Right, right.
Right.
The Great Gatsby murder case took place, I guess it was probably about a dozen blocks south of Penn Station, right? It would probably
It
be,
is.
yeah, the area. I know the area a bit.
Yeah.
And is
I,
that go ahead.
I live in the area called Chelsea in the 20s,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and so
Okay.
it takes place on one of those streets. Uh,
Hmm.
and I had so much fun writing it. And when I finished, uh, Izzy Abramovitz and Ms. Belfer and Daniel Freud, I got to like so much that I thought I can't leave them behind.
Hmm.
So I've already started the sequel,
Oh, okay. Well,
which whether I'll finish it, I couldn't say,
mhm.
but I'd like to. We'll find out.
Well,
And and all of them will have, and I won't say what the next one is based on,
mhm.
but all of them will have a classic novel in the title,
Okay. Oh,
and
that's great.
I hope it's great. uh, as great as The Great Gatsby, because The Great Gatsby I think is one of maybe the most maybe my favorite novel of the American novel of the 20th century. Certainly one of the top five. and
Yeah.
I can't leave it behind somehow.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I'm kind of at my age, I'm getting caught up on reading, doing a lot more reading now than I did when I was younger. I'm sorry to say, as a writer, as a literary guy, you'll probably cringe when I tell you this, but when I was in high school, I guess you could have called me Captain Cliff Notes because I wasn't really that's somebody who, I would kind of opt to read the Cliff Notes instead of the actual book, which, hey, was to my detriment when report card time came around. But I've really found that, getting into, some of these books, because I have interviewed quite a few authors, and I've really enjoyed reading a lot of, fiction and nonfiction
Yeah.
and, discussing the
What
books
are
on
you
the
reading
show.
right now? Since you've finished my book, what are you
Well,
reading?
I'm looking at my next one. I have, there's a book of poems. I have an author who is a poet who's written 4 or 5 books of poetry, and she just sent me her latest. I've got her coming on the show pretty soon, and so I'm going to be reading that. And I just got another one from another guest who I haven't lined up the guest yet, but I did have his book here, and who's a was a television producer as well as a playwright, and wrote a book about his plays. And I'm hoping to I'm working with his publicist to get him on the show. So,
What is his name? I wonder. As you know, I think
mhm,
I'm a theater reviewer, theater critic. I guess I
mhm.
could call myself a critic, although that's probably a pay grade a little higher than mine. But but
Well,
but
his
I
name.
this
Go
guy's
ahead.
play. I may have seen his plays.
Billy Van Zant.
That's a familiar name, but I can't connect it with a particular title right now.
Okay, okay. I know he was. Let me see. He's gotten. He does a lot more with. He's been on television and he's been in movies as well. But he's been a little bit more of a writer than he actually is. Behind the cameras compared to being in front of the camera. Produced a lot of shows too over the years. And he's more. I think he's more California based than New York based. But I've had him on the show before when he had another book out. But yeah, he's an interesting guy too. A lot of great stories with him as well. You know, so so as I was asking before, some of the characters, we were talking a bit about Izzy Abramovich, and some of the other ones. Are these kind of um, based on people that you've known, or are they kind of just maybe how you picture some people you may see in your neighborhood?
I'll answer it by referring to another book of mine,
Okay.
another collection of short stories called People Tell Me Things.
Okay.
And the title really is a warning to my friends because I figure so many people have told me things over the years, and I think, yes, that's an interesting story, but what if that had also happened? And then will write a short story based on their on the story they told me, but that I've elaborated on. And so yes, a lot of what I write is based on people who aren't terribly happy about it.
Right, right, right.
And so and but the stories I there's the last story and People Tell Me Things is maybe the best thing I've ever written.
Mhm.
Um, but but um, but I don't know. I'll reread it every once in a while. I do read myself, and again, only yesterday I wrote a story. I read a story that I wrote probably 35 years ago, and I hadn't read since.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow, this is much better than I expected it to be.
Mhm.
Um, and it's based on people I know, but also giving it a twist, several twists. But Izzy Abramovich in the Great Gatsby murder case is completely out of my head.
Mhm.
And Ms. Belfer is sort of based on all those women you see that stand around, even in suburban neighborhoods
Hmm.
are somehow out on their lawn watching what everybody else in the neighborhood is doing. So
Mrs. Kravitz, maybe from Bewitched.
yes, and so that's based on a type of character. Um, but I've said it already, but I just love these three characters, so they amuse me so much that
Hmm.
I have to I can't leave them. I can't let them go.
Hmm. Right,
And
right.
and um, and then well, there is a book that I've written um, that is based on an actual person,
Hmm.
which I will describe. You can shut me up if you think it's going too far. But on January 20th, 2017, which was inauguration day for the current president's first term,
Yep.
I was kind of disturbed by that, and I thought to myself, I'm going to satirize for my amusement. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, which I changed to Humpty Trumpty sat on a wall, and I wrote a send up of that, and then I thought it would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it, if I wrote one a day for the next year, which was handing myself quite a chore. And I thought, well, I probably won't be able to do it, but I can try. And I did it. And I wrote the last one on January 20th, 2018,
Hmm.
and collected. I put all of these up on Facebook. And then I collected them and put out a book um, called Humpty Trumpty Hit a Brick Wall.
Hmm.
And when we had inauguration day a month or so ago, I thought, I don't want to do this again, do I? And then I thought, well, I'll write one. And I've written one every day since. And I think I think I'll try to that my publisher will reissue the first book with maybe 50 new ones added
Hmm.
in. But I don't think they'll please people who voted for the current president, and but I think people who don't will get a kick out of them.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I see. There's a link to it on your website here. It goes to an Instagram page that has them all on there, and yeah, you basically a little rhyme every day about whatever may be going on or whatever he's up to in the news. So
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah,
I'm not just doing them exclusively about him.
right,
I've
right.
done about one about Cash Patel, one about Pete
Hmm.
Hegson, which was on the day that he was confirmed. Uh, Pete Hegseth just went to bat.
Hmm.
He won, and now he'll drink to that.
Right, right, right. Right. Yeah. So, and I see that, a lot of the ones that are up here I see on the Instagram page look like they're from the previous term. Um,
Oh, yes. Facebook has been calling Finkle memories or something like that,
oh,
and
okay.
they've been running them from the first go round,
Oh, okay.
which kind of surprised me.
Hmm.
But okay,
Yeah.
do it.
Right. Right. I was also, it looks like there's a show that you're involved with called The Hour of Lateral Thinking. Is that WBAI radio?
It has been. I do
Hmm.
a podcast with five other friends,
Oh, I see. Yeah, there it is. Yep.
and what we do is every week we choose one subject,
Hmm.
and we discuss that for 55 minutes. And actually, just before I spoke to you, we taped today's program, and the podcast. The theme was privilege,
Hmm.
and which was really kind of fascinating because we talked about having privilege and growing up with privilege. And And part of what I said was that I'm a very lucky guy. I had a very privileged childhood. And one thing about that is I learned early never to abuse my privileges. So
Right, right.
I'm grateful for everything that I've had in my life. I've been lucky, and I'm grateful every day, which I think you gotta be. But last week's the theme was courage. The week before, the theme was hats.
Mhm.
So it could be almost anything.
I'm looking at the page right now, and there is just such, boy, you've probably got about a couple dozen topics on here. And it looks like you can just click on one. I see masks, giants, news sources, keepsakes, museums, bread, candy, shoes, just about everything. It seems like you're
Just about
talking about.
everything. And the thing, it seems like just about everything, but we've been doing it for about 8 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
we've never run out of new subjects.
Sure. Oh.
Probably won't. I mean, there are billions
Mm-hmm.
to be chosen from. So, this is, we're all kind of, we all have senses of humor, and we're all somewhat informed, and so we have and we all play off each other. So it's a lot of fun to do.
It looks like it. It looks like it. And you've got, you said it was, so you've got, yeah, six of you. And, oh, and you have, let me see, Janet Coleman, David Dozer, Chris Surf, Henry Beard,
Well,
and,
Chris Surf and Henry Beard no longer do it,
oh,
uh,
okay.
but we have Otis McClay, Mark Keogh, and our engineer Robert Ald,
Oh,
and
okay. I
we
see
always,
his name there. Yeah.
yeah, and we it's just a lot of fun to do. It's easy. We don't really prepare for it. We see what we get the theme. Janet chooses the theme every week, and she tells us late on Saturday, and then we also suggest songs that would fit with the theme,
Hmm.
and and um and then we start recording on around 4:30 every Monday.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. This looks like, you've got a lot of perspectives on here too, a bunch of different points of view and everything that can kind of really add to the conversation. So
Oh,
I'm
sure.
gonna have to start listening to this. This sounds great. Where can you find it? Is it strictly on your website or is it on
Oh,
maybe
you know
Apple?
that you, I'm going to start matching you with drawing blanks, Michael, because I think we're sure on Progressive Radio Network, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I'm sure it can find what. I guess what's the phrase? You can find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Right, right. Wherever podcasts are found online. Right, right.
Yeah.
It looks like in WBAI, is that the call letters of that station?
WBAI has been on the air in Manhattan, from Manhattan for decades now. It was, I guess, originally, and maybe it still is thought of as an alternative radio station.
Oh, okay, sure, sure. Is it like an NPR thing or is it um
Oh, yeah, yes, I guess it is.
okay.
And Janet and David have had shows on WBAI for, I don't know, 40 or 50 years.
Okay, okay. Sure. Wow. Well, this sounds great. And you can find them again wherever you find podcasts online, but if you go to your website, it's davidfinkel.com. You've got a few dozen episodes just to kind of get your feet wet with here. So
And actually, I have a new website called davidfinkelwrites.com.
okay. Okay. Well, I'll make sure that I list these in the show notes too when we post this online.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we post this up here too. So I also see, and again, I'm looking through your website here. I mean, this is just like a treasure trove of all kinds of great things.
Nice of you to say, Michael.
Well, it is. It is. It seems like one thing leads to another, and you've got your. I saw a bunch of. Did I see a bunch of theater reviews too?
Well, I've reviewed theater for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, your listeners may be interested to know if they're interested in the theater and they're interested in the Tony Awards. I am I'm a Tony voter.
Oh, is
So
that right?
yeah, so which means that so far this year we've had, I think, 20
Mm-hmm.
eligible productions open. We'll probably have maybe another 15 or 16 or 18. And the Tony season ends at the end of April, which means that producers who want to make sure their productions are still fresh in the minds of us reviewers try to open their productions in March and April,
Mm-hmm.
which is, as some of your listeners may know, that that the Wasteland, T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, begins with April is the cruelest month. And for us reviewers, April really is the cruelest month
Mm-hmm.
because we have to see maybe as many as 18 openings
Mm-hmm.
in a month, which is a lot, but we do it. And a lot of I mean, I think all of us love the theater, and that's why we go. Sometimes when we've seen a real stinker, we love the theater somewhat less.
Uh-huh.
But that is, and then suddenly something comes along that we have heard nothing about, and you go in and you don't know what you're going to expect, and something brilliant is there before your eyes, and
Uh-huh.
it's that's the payoff. That's the consolation.
Right. The page or the link on your website, it's you'll see a link for New York Stage Review, and that's where
That's,
these are.
that's where all my reviews now
Mm-hmm.
appear. New York Stage Review, and
Right.
there are 7 or 8 of us who switch off on what we're reviewing
Mm-hmm.
during it. And so I don't review everything opening in a month, but I may, if 8 or 10 things are opening, I might do 4 or 5 or 6.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it looks like there's a list of the critics here, and there's your name, of course, with I guess there's probably about a dozen of them on here now, so you get the perspective of just about well, a good number of people,
Yeah,
and
and we're all people who have been reviewing for a long time,
mm-hmm.
and I tend to think we're all very knowledgeable. And I always like to remind people that reviews are not the last word on something.
Right,
Reviews are only opinions, but Michael Summers and Melissa Rose Bernardo and Stephen Suskin and Alyssa Gardner and who else am I leaving out? Um, Frank Scheck and myself, Roma Torrey, and I still think I may have been maybe overlooking someone, but we're all theater lovers and theater goers, and we have I guess I can say it's going to date me, but of course I have to date someone. Um, is The first thing I ever saw on Broadway was South Pacific,
oh yeah, yeah.
and I thought, oh, this is what it's going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
for, and it was not. And when I moved to New York after graduating from college, I the first play I saw was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I thought, oh, this is going to be what it's like every night. And it isn't.
Right.
But still, I've seen good things. And having that kind of background you can draw on when you're looking at something new
Mm-hmm.
and putting it into perspective, into context, is I think the more you've seen, the more you're able to do that, which is a big plus.
South Pacific's a fun show. I was in that once down at Baltimore
Oh, what
Actors Theater. Yeah.
did you play Luther Billis?
No, I played Bus Adams.
Uh-huh.
I dropped Luther Billis out of the plane. I had that part,
Oh,
and
you
then I was also in the ensemble as well. So that was a lot. That was a fun show. I
so
really
you're saying
enjoyed
there's
that.
nothing like a dame?
I did. Yeah, I sure did.
Will you sing it for us now? No, you probably will.
I'll give you a couple bars. There is nothing like a dame, nothing in the world. There is nothing you can name that is anything like a dame.
Sounds good to me. So you're a bass baritone.
Yes, yes.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a
So,
treat, Michael. I was glad to hear that.
well, thank you. Thank you. I've done that's kind I was always a band guy, and I got invited to do some theater. The first play I did, besides things I did when I was like a little kid in elementary school, was Jesus Christ Superstar.
Mm.
And I was Caiaphas in that.
Uh-huh.
I've done did some Shakespeare. There was a theater down in DC that my wife and I both did some Shakespeare, and we did a repertory theater. It was we did Tis Pity She's a Whore, and we did Twelfth Night. Tis Pity She's a Whore was by John Ford.
Yeah.
That was he was kind of in the same era as Shakespeare.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And what Shakespeare plays have you done
Um,
besides Night?
I did Twelfth Night, and I've done Othello.
Oh, well, that's a tragedy and a comedy.
Yep.
You've done the spectrum.
Hmm.
That's uh, Shakespeare is Shakespeare is wonderful. A lot of people think that Shakespeare is difficult. Shakespeare is not difficult. He writes so beautifully and frequently so conversationally
Hmm.
that you start reading them and it's like just speaking sentences, and many of them are sentences.
Hmm.
But I'm glad to know that you've done that. It's I wish more people realize that Shakespeare is, and he was Shakespeare wrote. He had such an understanding of human psychology.
Hmm.
The characters they're classics because those people are just like us today.
Sure, sure. And the thing that was really good too was, the fact that I got into, acting. I was late to the party. I didn't start until I was, over 40.
Now, what
But
got you started? What did you start?
well, I was always in bands, and
Oh,
I just happened to be giving somebody I worked with a ride home,
uh-huh.
and he said, you sing, right? And I said, yeah, I can a little bit. And he said, well, we're doing Jesus Christ Superstar, and we need men. Why don't you come out to audition for it? And I said, well, I've always wanted to try doing a play. And I said, sure. So I went out, and then I just got started, I started getting asked to do different things from there. A lot of children's theater, which is a lot of fun. I tell you what, the best audiences ever are the kids.
Oh,
Uh,
you're right about that. Uh,
um,
my partners, I have two partners, writing partners,
mhm,
although we haven't written anything recently, but about 10 years ago, I don't think much, maybe 15 years ago, you may have heard of it. There's a TheaterWorks USA, which does children's plays.
mhm, mhm.
And they got the rights to the Babar books. And we wrote a play about Babar. It was called Babar's Birthday.
Sure, I remember Babar very well. My parents would read those to me when I was growing up.
Well, we did this musical, and so for children.
Hmm.
And the wonderful thing about children is they let you know
Hmm.
immediately if they don't like it. They're not polite. And so we had to keep, we wrote it and we revised it and tweaked it and because you start playing so and we did several tryouts in front of different young audiences
Hmm.
before we finished the whole thing. And if they get bored, they let you know. They just stop looking or they start talking to each other. And so we got to the point where they didn't stop looking
Hmm.
and it was great fun to do.
But they
Uh,
are great fun to do. At Baltimore Actors Theater, we would do some shows in the summertime. There were a bunch of camps for different children's camps in the area where they would bus them in. We would do them on Wednesday mornings for them. And then there were other times, like around Christmas, we would do Babes in Toyland. I got to play Santa Claus in that one time. And then I also had to be Santa Claus in the lobby afterwards for all the kids to come over.
Well, you've got the voice.
Yeah. Thanks. And I also do now, my murder mystery company also does the Polar Express now on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. And
Yeah.
that's a fun show to do as well. And but the thing with playing Santa Claus is that I could really see it then, but I could also see it doing the other children's shows. Is that when they believe you, they believe you, and when they're leaving, we would greet them in the lobby as they were walking back out to their buses, and they were like fascinated with us. They wanted to shake hands, touch our hand. They would ask us all these questions. I mean, they bought it. When I was Santa Claus, I was sitting there in a chair and the kids were in line, and they would come up to me and they would be kind of looking at me like, okay, is this guy real? But sometimes their parents would tell me to say something to them ahead of time. I'd know their name, a lot of them, when they came over. Hi, David. Hi, Sally. And I would say things like, so, I heard you did very well in art this year. I had a talk with your teacher. The minute I would say I had a talk with their teacher, their eyes would get this big and they'd be like, oh my God, you spoke to my teacher. And I said, and they gave me a very good report. And I never saw relief over people in such a big way. But I always enjoyed doing that, and I enjoy doing what I do now with my murder mystery company. We have a lot of fun with that too.
I want to see one of those, or at least read one of those. I do. I want to tell you about one of my failures. Don't you want to hear about one of my failures?
Sure. Go right ahead.
My partner, Bill Whedon, and I wrote a musical called Hurry Harry. And Harry was a guy who was going through life trying to find happiness, and he couldn't find it. And he tried all sorts of ways to live, and it never worked. The show was actually kind of cute, but it just didn't gel. And so Hurry Harry came to Broadway. So I've had my Broadway flop. And I think we played 3 nights. Opening night, and I think we opened on a Thursday night. We had a Friday night performance and 2 performances on Saturday, and that was it. So that's my failure. But you know what Samuel Beckett said? He said, if you fail again, just fail better.
Right. Hey, there you go. So and some people would say you could make more money with a flop than with a hit.
Some people would say that. I wouldn't, but some
right.
people would.
Right. That's a classic right there. That was I've seen that done in theater as well as in the movies, of course. And one of my favorites of all time. That's definitely one of my favorites there, the producers. And so let's see here. I know you had mentioned we were talking about and you have a couple of other spots here that I saw where you are you've contributed, it looks like, to the Huffington Post, the Village Voice, the Clyde Fitch Report is another one here that I see. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, the Clyde Fitch is a name that's almost entirely forgotten now. He was a turn of the century, not this century, but the previous century, playwright. Very
okay.
And my friend Leonard Jacobs was just obsessed with Clyde Fitch. And he started a online periodical called the Clyde Fitch Report that I reviewed for him and wrote for him. But I've written for many, the New York Times and the Village Voice. Of course, I was there for many years. And I probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 other outlets. So I've been a journalist, and from 1962 to 72, I was the associate editor of a trade magazine in the music business. Called Record World, and there were 3 at the time: Billboard, which was the best known and the most successful, Cashbox, and then Record World, which was started by 2 men who left Cashbox to start their own magazine. And so I was writing about the music business, reviewing every single that came out for about 10 years. And it was such an exciting musical decade because of the British invasion and folk rock and
Yes.
all of that starting. And I was at everything. I was at Shea Stadium. If
Hmm.
you know about the Shea Stadium Beatles concert,
Yes, 66.
with 64, I think. Um,
Mhm.
and which was fascinating because if you have the time to hear this,
Yeah,
uh,
please.
um, I had my seats in the press section.
Hmm.
So there we were, a sizable press section all together. Everybody else in it was mostly young girls.
Hmm.
I think there was some young men, but some were boys. If I say girls, I have to say boys. And so they were all sitting out at Shea Stadium, waiting for the Beatles to arrive. Suddenly, on the far distant horizon, a speck appears, and the girls realize that it's the Beatles arriving in a helicopter, and they start screaming. And they scream and scream and scream, so that the helicopter lands about 30 feet from the stage. They're screaming. The Beatles, or the Mop Tops as we knew them then as well, got out of the helicopter. The girls scream. They race to the stage. They get on the stage. They put on their guitars, or Ringo goes to the drums, and they start to play. The girls are screaming. The girls scream for 35 minutes, which is as long as the Beatles play. Not a note is heard. Not a voice is heard. The Beatles finish. They race off. They go to the helicopter. The girls are still screaming, and they continue screaming until that speck of the helicopter
Mm,
has gone the other side of the horizon. And we never heard a note.
mm.
But I was there. I was
Mm.
there for the Beatles at Shea Stadium, and I
No
was
kidding.
I was there for the Rolling Stones first concert in Manhattan, which was at Carnegie Hall,
Oh, okay.
and and it wasn't entirely sold out. But there was a problem
Hmm.
because fans of the Rolling Stones had gotten into the habit of throwing jelly beans while they were on stage. But if the people in the balcony were throwing jelly beans, they didn't quite make it to the stage.
Oh boy.
We all got pelted with jelly beans. But I maintain that the Rolling Stones are still the greatest band I ever saw. Well, no, no, they have an equal, Bruce Springsteen.
Hmm.
And Bruce Springsteen is the most generous. He'll play for hours. I
He
think he
will.
probably still does. But the Rolling Stones and Honky Tonk Women, maintain, is the greatest single ever released by a rock and roll band. It's but those are I've fallen behind the times. I don't really know a lot of the current performers.
Mhm.
And some of
Sure. 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 Yeah,
but
I understand.
I'm from a different period. I'm older now. I'm not old, but I'm older.
I've heard, I've had some other guests tell me some great Beatles stories too. I've had one fella, his name was Frank Luber from Baltimore. He has been, he was on the news for many, many years, a news anchor. He was also a radio personality, and he interviewed the Beatles when they came to Baltimore for the first time, and had a had some great, stories to tell about that. I also interviewed a fellow by the name of Jay David. He was the drummer for a band called Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show in the 70s.
No, I
And
know
he,
about him.
yep, and he performed, I'd say it was not too far from you. I think it was like West Side, maybe where the Peppermint Lounge was, around that area.
The Beverly Lounge was on West 45th Street,
Right, right, right. That's what I was thinking. West 45th.
which was where Chubby Checker performed.
Yeah, yeah, and the Stones too. Um, but
I'd
what do you?
forgotten it. Yeah, that's probably right. That they were not playing huge
Mhm.
places. But there was a club in New York you probably know about called the Improv.
Yes.
Not the Improv, the Bottom Line.
Hmm.
Bottom line was Columbia called up I knew the two owners,
Hmm.
Alan Pepper and Stanley Stadowski. They opened the Bottom Line,
Hmm.
and Columbia called them and said, "We're bringing Bruce Springsteen into town. He was just starting out, and we can't put him in a big venue yet." And their venue was about, I think, 499 seats.
Hmm.
Would you put him in there? So they said, of course, and because I knew Alan and Stanley, I was there for that.
Hmm.
Bruce Springsteen in a 499 seat house. So none of us were more than, I don't know, 50 feet away from him.
Mm.
And we got up and danced. He was so wonderful.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And again too, when he goes out and tours, I mean, you're going to get a concert that night. You know, you're going to get your money's worth out of that. You know, because
Absolutely more than your money's worth. He
Mhm.
really is so generous.
Mhm.
And
Really is.
I think part of it is he loves to play.
I think so too. I agree with you. I agree with you. And um, yeah, yeah, I've heard all kinds of great, you know, again, you know, a lot of great Beatles stories, a lot of great, you know, from, and I have, you know, I'm also a DJ on 97 Underground in Baltimore too, and I do a lot of interviews for that. You know, mostly,
How often do you do? Are you on nightly or
I'm on Tuesdays from 4 to 6, and then there's a replay of my show Wednesday late. It's from 2 to 4 a.m. And it's an internet radio station. It's not terrestrial. It used to be terrestrial, but we've went to internet, and it's 97underground.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I also go out and I MC. I bring the bands on at concerts sometimes, whenever they have us. You know, whenever the band would like us to do that. And um, I've but what I wanted to tell you is I've also got to know, you know, a good number of authors and a lot of people that, you know, were in the business who are writing their memoir now.
Okay.
And I've gotten some, you know, opportunities to hear some really great stories and interview some really great people over the years. You know, this is actually my 12th season and my 8th year of doing this podcast. Over 350 episodes. And you're my leadoff hitter for season 12.
Happy to be. I'm honored to be
Oh,
starting off. That's really nice.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I what there was one thing I wanted to say about all of that. Oh well, I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. We're drawing a blank. You know, so are you going to have any appearances or signings or events for your book? Are you going to be at any bookstores like signing or meeting people or meet and
Not at
greets?
the moment.
Okay.
There may be, but if there are, I don't know about them at the moment. But
Okay.
I'm happy to sign.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, what we'll do is I'll make sure that I'll put in the show notes. You know, I'll make sure I'll have your website, you know, davidfinkle.com. And you also said, yeah,
Yeah,
davidfinklewrites.com.
I think
Um,
that would be the one to use because I think I'm going to shut down davidfinkel.com and move everything over to David Finkel Writes.
okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but this is talking to you has been such a pleasure, Michael.
Well, thank you. I'm honored that you would say that. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed getting to meet you and, you know, learn about you and talk to you tonight too, David. It's been a real pleasure, you know. So, I guess if you'd like to do your shameless plugs for us right now, you can. This is what I call the shameless plug portion of the evening, where you can shamelessly plug anything you'd like to shamelessly plug
I,
with no
I,
shamelessness spared and all shamelessness encouraged.
I feel as if you've given me the opportunity shamelessly plugging plenty. I mean, of course, and I think one thing I did mention Humpty Dumpty hit a brick wall. I mentioned people tell me things. I mentioned the man with the overcoat.
Hmm.
Of course, I mentioned the Great Gatsby murder case, and there may be even more that and great dates with some late greats.
Hmm.
That's really, I think that's pretty much everything uh, everything that I've got published at the moment. And maybe
hmm.
there's something else. I probably will be publishing my next novel within the next 6 months, which,
Okay.
which I think will be, I don't want to mention it yet, but it'll be actually another rather serious novel,
Hmm.
which I've already written. Um,
Right.
and I just, I waited till this interests me. I don't know if it interests you, but I always felt when I was a reader from a very young age, and I started to think, if I can't write as well as the people I read, who, you know, John Cheever, Philip Roth, Saul Bellow, uh, Anthony Poe, I don't know, he's a name that's not known here, as well as London, where he wrote, Marcel Proust. If I couldn't write at that level,
Hmm.
what's the point? But finally, when I was in my 50s, I thought, maybe I'll try. I'll see what I can do. I have a story I want to tell, and I wrote it, and it came out well. So since then, I've been writing, and I can't stop. But then again, why? Why should I stop?
Right, right, right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into some of your short stories and the great dates with late greats. I think I'm going to hit some of those and read some of those and check out some more of your stuff now that I've
But when you
read.
read them, Michael, I don't want to hold you this. Well, I guess I do want to hold you to this. When you read them, I'd love to know what you think.
Sure, sure. Well, like I said, after the show, we'll exchange contact information, and I'll make sure that I
Absolutely.
keep in touch with you
Absolutely.
here. Okay. Well, folks, the book, The Great Gatsby Murders by David Finkle, and highly recommended. I'll give this 2 thumbs up. 1, 2. There we go. And Roger Ebert also gave you a nice review there too. So another thumbs up.
Roger Ebert, uh, maybe I shouldn't be saying this for the listeners who are here, but you get your blurbs for books. Many times you get them from good friends.
Hmm.
Roger Ebert was a good friend of mine.
Right, right.
I think he believed in my writing, but
Hmm.
he was also a good friend, and of course we know a great movie critic,
Hmm.
and I was very fond of Roger, and I miss him um, because he's now gone from us for I don't know, maybe 10 years already. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's been about 10 years since he passed away. Yeah, yeah. But
He,
I used to enjoy watching him and Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert.
yeah, they were
Um,
they were wonderful.
yeah, they
Uh,
sure were. They sure were. Yep. So,
okay.
well, folks, David, thank you for joining us tonight here. And in wrapping up, remember that you know, keep your eyes, folks, on davidfinklewrites.com, davidfinkle.com, and Finkle is spelled Finkle. I believe there's another writer who's Finkel.
There is.
Yeah.
I think that David Finkel is still at the Washington Post. I'm not sure. But
Yes.
on very rare occasions, I've gotten mail meant for him. I don't know.
Hmm.
I've never talked to him, so I don't know whether he's ever gotten mail meant for me.
Yeah.
But if he did, he hasn't forwarded it. And
Hmm.
and I'd like to meet him someday because he's an awfully good writer and he's written some good books too.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, folks, you know where to find them, and you can. I guess you can order, the Great Gatsby Murder Case wherever you find books online, and check out the website. I think you'll definitely find a lot of interesting things. You'll definitely find a lot of rabbit holes to go down, and you'll enjoy reading all
Actually,
of David's work.
I will say on my website, there are a number of short stories that I
Hmm.
haven't collected yet, and there's one called All Those Boys, which I think is also one of the best things I've written, if I have to say so myself, and I just did say so myself.
Well,
Why
great.
not?
Great. Well, folks, we've been listening to David Finkle tonight, the Great Gatsby murder case. You know where to find it online. Definitely check him out. And we will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in to season 12, episode 1 of Fowl Players Radio. Folks, thanks for sticking around tonight. And I really hope you enjoyed this episode with David Finkle as much as I did. Here's his book, The Great Gatsby Murder Case. It's a very clever book. And, you know, if you're into murder mysteries like I am, and why wouldn't I be? And why wouldn't you be? You know, you're really going to enjoy this book. It can be found at davidfinklewrites.com and also davidfinkle.com. You can find all of his work there, and I think you really enjoy looking through his website, listening to his podcasts and everything. And all of the links to everything will be in the show notes of this episode. So thank you all for sticking around. Remember, get out there and support the artists, everybody. You know, get out there and support our authors, our bands. Not only do things like this book and tickets to shows make great gifts, they also make great experiences. So, folks, until next time, this is Michael Spedden on Fowl Players Radio, signing off.